ghost down the hallway. There's a presence, bedroom shadows, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed. Ghostly apparition hovering over me, asking what it wants to know. I'm shaking now, it calls out my name, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed.
Mis hijos, mamá les ama, mamá les encontrará y traerá a casa nuevamente para que podamos estar juntos para siempre.
Walking, weeping and grieving, walking along the waterways, searching in vain. Where are you? What did I do? La traición, el dolor, jealousy raining again. Vengeful embrace, I lost them in the lane. Haunting the night, I've broken, my tears never dry. My pain is the only thing alive. Mi corazón, mi corazón. I am the one who cries. I am the one who searches for eternity. One day I'll find, one day I'll look upon your faces again. La traición, el dolor, jealousy raining again. Vengeful embrace, I lost them in the lane. Heartbreak follows me to the afterlife. I roam the water's edge till we are together again. Mi corazón, mi corazón. La traición, el dolor, jealousy raining again. Vengeful embrace, I lost them in the lane. La traición, el dolor, jealousy raining again.
All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT. One second. All right. So, what we have today, and as you can see, I'm sitting in pretty much an empty room, and there's an echo. Yeah, it really sucks having to do the show from here, but I'm still having problems. My toe is still inflamed. It's getting better slowly. My knee, I'm able to walk better. So praise God for that. Thank God for that. And I'm glad that everybody's here and has joined us. Um, we just gotta bear with you. Just gotta bear with me. I got to get this show done, and it's a lot that we got to work on. It's important. So, one of the things that we need to discuss, and we've been wanting to discuss, is some of the information that was given to us by the people who claimed that they were part of a cult. And as you can see, um, I've made a commitment since I've been back to talk about these things. I think it's very important. And I don't think missing episodes and shows due to injury or pain or whatever is a smart thing. It's not smart because I want to keep everybody on track and get the information out there. So that's why we're here doing the show. We're going to let the chat fill up a little bit. If you have any questions going on about the last episode, because the last episode was the prelude to this one, I had to get that out and get all of her stories and information and things that had happened to her. Her name is Eve, Evelyn. So I thought it was important that we just start from the beginning. One of the things that I got to say, I don't know that. I mean, like I can tell you this information, but is it 100% accurate? I don't know. I just know that multiple people are telling us that this is what is real. These people don't want to show their faces. I understand that. Some of them are willing to say their first names. They don't care. They're not afraid. One person was willing to talk, but they are not really getting them to tell the story and make it like get some continuity was kind of hard. They were kind of jumping around, and I didn't think it was a good idea to have them. They were, the only one that was willing to do it, and it just didn't. Nothing personal against them, and they didn't care either way. So I was like, look, if you want to tell it, that's fine, as long as their face wasn't shown. But I don't. The way that they told the story, I had to rearrange it so it fit correctly because it was the middle first, and then the ending, and then the beginning was like a Tarantino movie. No offense, but I had another person named Rex Rude who had sent me some information. I have since blocked that individual because that individual became a bit of a problem because he began to send ridiculous messages, not ridiculous in saying anything outlandish, but just very combative and argumentative. And I was just like, they did not like their portrayal of how I portrayed them on the show. And I was like, look, I was honest. You were not a friendly person. You were not an easy person to deal with. And I don't want to deal with you. Since then, I've had a few weird things happen, but I'm not going to chalk it up to anything, but just it could be anything. I mean, what's going on with me now? My elbow felt like it was starting to get inflamed last night, so we flew into action, and hopefully we beat it to the punch and started getting it under control. I am in a lot of pain. I took some medication for, I don't take pain medication. I won't do it, but I took some cure med, and hopefully it'll get me through the episode. Be sure and like and subscribe. If you want to help the show, you can donate or you can do the Patreon. That's fine. There's lots of ways to help out. Just giving us views, liking, and subscribing is the most important way. But yeah, you can donate. You guys post the Patreon and the link to the PayPal if you want to donate without having to give it to YouTube or whatever. That's fine too. Donations are appreciated, but they're not expected. I don't put anything behind a paywall. That is the thing. I mean, trying to do the episodes and keep it free, but not putting things behind a paywall, that's an issue. We're trying to keep that from happening. Although there are a couple members of the team who are telling us that that's something that we need to start looking into. I continue to argue with them about it, that I don't want to do that, but I don't know. We're going to keep it free as long as we can. But the show does depend on the Patreon and other things like that. And I can only do so much if I don't, like, I can't use my other businesses to fund the show and to support the show. So let's put it that way. A lot of people think, oh, this guy's got lots of money. He can do what he wants, blah, blah, blah. No, not when you're trying to get into a house. And we are losing 2 major accounts at the end of the month, and things are going kind of in decline. That is something that is on the horizon. I may have to start working more and putting the show on the back burner because it is not a viable source of income. Right now, we're not really making enough to, like, the show is being supported by the other businesses right now. Hopefully we'll get back on track and we can, the Patreon got cut in half because of our hiatus, which I can understand. We're planning on coming back, at least not in a permanent full-time capacity. So that's completely understandable why people said, hey, so they canceled. And I mean, nothing you can do. I mean, if you're not doing the show, that's it. But now we're back, but the people didn't come back. So it happens. I'm not gonna cry about it or worry about it. For now, at least for the next couple of weeks, we're good. But we'll see what happens going into the future. I can't spend an inordinately large amount of time researching and doing things like I would like when there is a ton of work that needs to be done. It's just not financially feasible. Thank you for that donation, Solovino. And we had just disavowed donations altogether back in July before we went in our hiatus the last couple of weeks, and we were just like, yeah, whatever. And did not really think of how much it actually helps keep the show going, because then you have to use all of your other resources to keep it going, and then that becomes an issue. And so one of the reasons why I didn't come back, I was just determined, I was like, I'm not going to come back, is because I saw that it was going to be a financial burden to try to keep it going, and spending a lot of time doing the research and understand, but what drove me to come back, even though it can be a bit of a burden, I wanted to get the information out there to you. And I enjoy interacting with my fans, and I want to help. I genuinely want to help people and help the community. Now, there are some people that this is their way of making a living. It's not mine. And I'm not going to use this as my main source of income. There's no way in hell I'd be that way, at this stage in the game. Exactly, D-True. Time is money. But time is money. That was my next statement. And, I don't have a lot of it. But being laid up with this pain, I'm still able to use my phone and work and do what I got to do. I can't spend a lot of time in front of the computer because it starts to hurt my hip. And so I'm going to do as much as I can tonight, but I can't guarantee that I'll be here for, as the pain grows, I'm going to have to get up and go. So that being said, my football teams all suck. They all just went down in flames today. I think the Raiders and the Cowboys are still getting the hell beat out of them. The Texans got blowed out, and the Bucks got their butt whooped at home. So whatever. Good thing is, don't got to worry about it. If they all suck this year, and I have nothing to do, I don't care. It's just something you don't even got to worry about. I am going to be right back. I'm going to say a quick prayer. I'll be back. All right. Had not said my daily prayer, which I usually do. And so here we are. And I decided to start the show a little bit early because there was nothing going on but football. It was just not interesting to me, just people getting shellacked. And so waiting for the chat to fill up a little bit. Keep track of the chat. I don't want a bunch of trolls in here, please. Thank you to everybody. So Adam says he tried to make a donation and it didn't work. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. Sorry about that. Yeah, human being, chiropractor for the pain. This is gout. I mean, there's nothing I can do. I've had it several times along with kidney stones ever since I had Omicron. And I looked it up. There's a lot of people I know a lot of people who've gotten it since they had Crohn. And before that, never, not once. And now it's a horrific pain. If you've never experienced it, I hope you pray to God that you don't. Seriously, it's bad. In the gut, yeah. That's a good point. I actually take probiotics and prebiotics. I had run out, but I got back on them, and I think it's helped a lot. So what we're going to talk about tonight, and I was going to make this show, the title of it was going to be What Eve Knows About Vampires. And let me tell you, Eve knows quite a bit. He knows a lot. She was one of the people that was recommended to me by a guy named Charles. And Charles is one of the people from that temple. Now, there are several that have gotten away from there. One of them was Carlos. Another one was Eve. Another one was, uh, well, like I say, her real name, we call her Lacey. She is, I want to say the words hyper paranoid because that sounds like she's being paranoid. It's, I mean, there's reasons to be paranoid. And then, of course, we had Gerald and Joel. And so there's a few people who, um, have had issues with this place and they've gotten away from it. And one of the things when we talked about last was Eve had gone away to college. When she was at a university, a large university, an SEC university, she had some people approach her. And I believe that these people were what I would call spotters for this organization. And I believe these people have infiltrated to the highest levels. I mean, like it is amazing to me how much they have done, how well they have done it too. Oh. I can tell you this: it did not happen by accident, and it was not. It wasn't some easy thing. You know what I mean? Like they did it like step by step by step. And one of the people who is still a part of that church was this guy Rude. And Rude actually, I told his story, as fantastical as it may sound. That's what he said. That's not me, and that's not my. Who's in here? Panzer, are you in here? It's got to be. No, it's Martis. He's laying on the chair. He's blending in with the chair. And so Rude told me, Rex Rude told me that he was a practicing vampire, a very high level, high ranking vampire who was responsible, according to him, he's responsible for bringing together the Vril and helping them to walk amongst us and get into our society. Now, he's not one of these born again Christian people who have turned their back on this cult, and it is a cult. I believe it is. He's very much still a part of it. So, of course, he's going to be slanderous and angry and evil and say all kinds of vile things to me because I am born again. I'm not one of those kinds of people. But he was telling me, he goes, "You're surrounded by enemies on all sides." And I'm like, wow, Oracle of Wisdom. If you look online, you could see that. I mean, that's not like it's not very profound. I mean, but he was correct. I'll give him that. It was correct. But I was sitting here today and I was just like, I had everything ready to go. And I just decided to do it early because, like I said, I was watching football and it was just not happening. And trying to sit through those awful commercials. I mean, like every 5 minutes, it's horrible. Burger, shake, and fries. Eat this, and you'll probably die. And it's just you're there all day long, and I'm just going like, what is this? I need to just go and do the show, and I can't watch any more of these stupid commercials of these people. Of the McDonald's and the burger, I just can't do it. It's just horrible, and they just sit there and they go ad nauseum, and it's every 2 minutes, and these ridiculous, crazy, damn things. I can't. I don't know. I just can't. I can't sit there and watch. What it is that they're trying to sell, whether it's this insurance and the lispy lizard that everybody thinks is an Australian accent, but it's really just being lispy. I just can't do it. And it's sitting there and you're going like, how much of this? Now I'm watching this and I'm going, how much of this advertising is actually done by these people who I believe have really strong control of I was watching a video the other day And I think my wife posted it, and it was about the graphene that's inside the vac, you know? And so when you're sitting there watching that and you see how it reacts to the 5G, holy crap, man. I mean, it's the Hydra, and it's based on a nanotech that originally comes from the black goo mixed with AI. Now, I'm one of those people that believes that AI is not a good thing. I believe that we're heading toward oblivion. And we're not just heading towards it, like we're flying a spaceship into it. I mean, like if you ask me right now what I thought our future looked like, I would tell you not good. Not good at all. And then you have people who are trying to derail everyone who's trying to learn and trying to get to the truth, and they're going crazy trying to stop you. And every bad thing they can think of, they're coming up with it for as a reason to stop you from learning. And one of the conversations I had with Eve, and it was very just straight, to the point, but it was rather poignant, and it was sad. And it was, I was like, do you see any way to right this ship? And she said, no. She said, no, they have too much control, too much power, and the destruction has already begun. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just going along with it willingly. They're allowing it to happen. They're giving up things. This is her words, not mine. They're giving up things to the evilest people on the planet. And she said that we are headed toward oblivion. And anything that can help you is being taken away, and freedoms are being taken away bit by bit. She's like, it's all part of the plan. She's like, you can talk to people till you're blue in the face. She said, but you will reach some of them, and a lot of them are just going to think it's nonsense. And she's like, and I know it's hard to believe. But she said, but the truth is the truth. Now, one of the things that she did was her job as a female initiate originally. She long to just cut to the quick. She had these two people in her college that were pretending to be her friend, whatever, not even really college students. And one of them gave her this black book, which is the book that they use to initiate them. They gave it to her to read because they got her all into these vampire, like how cool vampires are. And, that she joined this vampire club. And she said, I didn't feel like it was really me. I felt like it was just something in me that was drawn to it. And these people were pushing it on me. And so she's like, I didn't really resist though, because it was like something that was in me telling me, yes, do this. She now believes that she is reincarnated from her great aunt. That's what she really believes. She fully believes that, whether it's true or not. That's, people are going to say, oh, it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Quran. It's not in the whatever, well, those books have been taken out. And so that's why it's important to have that foundation. It's very important to know what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with, and why. And understand how they operate. But as she grew, as she got older and she grew in power, she began to see that these abilities that she had were dormant and that they were coming out in a big way. She was starting to be very adept at mind reading. She was able to have dreams. She would go to sleep thinking about something, and she could memorize things in her dreams, which is something that I don't even know how that works. Like she would research something and then it would all fall into place when she dreamed. And she doesn't believe that it works the same way we think it does. Like there's this spirit guide and they're the ones that give you all this information. No, she was able to plug into the ether basically, and just, absorb information and knowledge, which a lot of people don't realize it's there. Smurfy says, let me guess, she's overweight and depressed. No, she's not. She's not. She's a devout Christian. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you this. She's an individual who I believe is on the right track now in her life. And she was one of the most powerful people to ever leave that. And I asked her, I said, do you feel threatened? Do you feel like at some point something could happen to you? She says, they put every spell they could at me. They threw it every spell they could at me, cursed me every which way, and all it did was go back to them and hurt them. She's like, I feel nothing spiritually, is in she's very spiritually sound in her foundation now. But when she was young, she was lost. She was exposed to Christianity. It was Baptist, and she rejected it. She didn't feel anything at all. She goes, I would go to church. I would sit there, felt nothing. I felt nothing at all. And she's like, the people that were leaders of the church were absolutely not good people. And I knew it. And I was just like, I felt nothing for it. I've had a lot of people say that with Catholicism too. They just don't, they go and they do it, but they don't feel anything at all. They're just like, it's just like going through the motions, you know? And so it was real easy for her to go away to school and then encounter these people who she found out later on were just plants. And her and one of her friends got really involved in this. Her friend, unfortunately, is still involved in this. And she has been for years. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. What does it say? Ryan Nasseris. It says this where free will becomes a problem because it is a majority believes in enslaving everyone else in the name of safety. Do you really have a moral and thinking public? Good question. But if you donate and I don't read your thing right away, just know I'll read it at the end of the show. So thank you for that gift of the membership too, Tane. Appreciate that, Tane. Tane's been around for a while. So one of the things that I have learned by dealing with these people is that they did talk to a few other people who just chose to chalk it up as nonsense. And they're like, suit yourself. They don't care whether you believe them or not. They're just telling you their truths. And I think that a lot of people are doing a big, big disservice. They're making a mistake by taking this and categorizing it as some fantastical ramblings of mad people, because I don't think that's what this is. And there have been a lot of people. What is this? 28, 25, 2 minutes left. What are you talking about? What is that? What are y'all talking about? Keep seeing that on there. Oh, the Cowboys have the ball. Oh, okay. So they fought back. Oh, well, they still played like crap the whole game. And now they're coming back. Okay, whoopee. So here's the thing. When you stop and you look at this whole situation with these people and you take it as a whole, you do not realize what they've done. What they do is, and this is my opinion from what I've learned, they take what they're doing and they put it on TV like it's like, you know, they make it out like it's make believe. But it's them. It's them putting it on in your face on TV, and they are so committed to deceiving us that what they do is they put it down there as soft disclosure because they think that they can circumvent, and a lot of them really believe this too. I've talked to them. They really believe that they can circumvent the laws of God. They can circumvent karma, which is the divine judgment. And they think that they can, do all these ridiculous things. And it's unbelievable. But the thing is, they're doing it. They're doing it. They're putting it out there, and it's soft disclosure. And everybody's like, oh, that's just a fantasy. That's just fiction. Blah, blah, blah. And people don't realize, they don't come to the realization that what these people are doing and what they've done is bullcrap. They're only trying to destroy us. And they're putting it right there in your face. And so they have the ability to sit back and say, you knew. You had all the information. We told you. Well, I thought that was fiction. Yeah, you thought that at your own peril. But I see it all the time, like every day. Like I see like what they are. I see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it's like, to me, it's very insidious. So what happened with this woman, she ended up dropping out of college and going to the temple. After she read the book, she took the book home on one of her, visits home as a freshman in college. And guess what? When she started digging through her great grandmother's stuff, she found another book just like it. Yeah, the same book. This is a book that if you read it cover to cover and then open it back up, if you've read it cover to cover and you've understood it, it'll have different words on it. I'm telling you, this is what they all told me. It's like the handbook for them. And she read this black book and she read it again and again. And every time there was new information on it. And how can this be? It's because it's a book of magic, real magic. Things that bend the laws of space and time, the laws of physics. And then Bubba says, so are they allowed to do anything as long as they tell us what they're doing? Yes. That's pretty much, yeah. They believe that they can do whatever they want. Can they? No. It's all their belief. But there are more of us that believe otherwise. You know why? Because of God. We have God. We have the Father of Christ. They have God too. They just don't call him what we call him. That's something totally different. Christ is absolutely spit upon and rejected because he separates us, the potential prey, from the predators. So they despise him and they're not able to hurt the truly anointed. Now, the fake Christian people there's a lot of them. And they're subjected to this because they are not true followers, believers, and they don't really truly. How can you really accept something you really don't believe? You can't. There's so many of those people out there that are doing evil and wicked, and they're deceiving everybody with their. I mean, they're on channels all the time, saying ridiculous things and spreading lies and rumors. They're obsessed with slandering, other people. Not just me, but they're doing it to everybody. They're going into everybody's chats and saying and doing horrible things, pretending to be other people. Those people they all swear up and down they're Christians and they're holy. They're going to learn at some point, either now, hopefully now, or later. If they will learn it later, it'd be too late. So you stop and you look at those people. You don't want to be one of those people or a follower of one of those people. And I'm going to tell you this. One of the things that she told me that really stuck with me, and it was, she said that she's like, it's so easy to fall back into what you were once doing. She's like, and if it was from a past life, she's like, and eventually you gain your memories back. She's like, it's so easy just to pick up where you left off. And I told her this. I said, when you took the goo, which is the black goo, I was like, you had it ingested and you bathed in it, basically. I said, at that point, I mean, they all do that. I said, did it fill you with false memories in the past life? She says, no. I reconnected to who I was. She's like, I went back and I saw my death. I relived it again. It's very traumatic. She's like, but I felt so empowered. And her group, they were called the Flaming Swords of Lilith. The Flaming Swords of Lilith. Lilith, let me explain to you what Lilith was if you don't know. Because some people may know, they think they know the story of Lilith. Oh, man. When she first went to the temple and was an initiate, It's weird too, because when she had the black book, her grandmother she showed it to her grandmother when she was first learning about this stuff. Her grandmother saw nothing. She thought it was like a blank diary that her mother never wrote in. She did not see the writing on the book, but she did. Eve did. And she was like, oh, my grandmother can't see this. She calls her friend, and her friend told her, she's like, that is not for her. That's for you. And when these people finally came out to who they were, it was already too late. She was all involved in this. She had all this power. There was a guy that she had a crush on, and he hurt her feelings, and so she did something really horrible to him. He fell out of a second-story window and broke his back. He lived, but he was paralyzed. Those kind of things. She had that kind of power. The neighbor's dog came and dug up her grandmother's garden. She struck it down with an illness, and it died. And I told her at that point, I said, do you feel any remorse for these things? She says, absolutely, but I didn't feel anything until I was, accepted by Christ. Makes sense. They don't feel anything. So if you go into who Lilith was, and I'll read you a little bit of this because I didn't have time to sit here and I'll just read it to you. This is Lilith in the Torah, the Talmud, and the Midrash, because it is a Jewish tradition. It says here, according to Jewish mythology, Lilith was Adam's wife before Eve. I think everybody knows that. Over the centuries, she also became known as a succubus, demon who she copulated with men, okay, during their sleep and strangled newborn. In recent years, the feminist movement has reclaimed her character by reinterpreting the patriarchal texts that portray her as a dangerous female demon in a more positive light. It says, the legend of Lilith has its roots in the biblical book of Genesis. This is in the Bible, where two contradictory versions of creation eventually led to the concept of a first Eve. The first creation account appears in Genesis 1 and describes the simultaneous creation of both male and female human beings after all the plants and animals have already been placed in the garden. In this version, man and woman are portrayed as equals in both the pinnacle of God's creation. The second creation story appears in Genesis 2. Here, man is created first and placed in the Garden of Eden to tend it. God sees that he is lonely. All the animals are made as possible companions for him. Finally, the first woman, Eve, is created after Adam rejects all the animals as partners. Hence, in this account, man is created first and woman is created last. These obvious contradictions presented a problem for the ancient rabbis who believed that the Torah would be the written word of God, or was the written word of God, and therefore it could not contradict itself. Therefore, they interpreted Genesis 1 so that it did not contradict Genesis 2, coming up with ideas such as the androgen and a first Eve in the process. According to the theory of a first Eve, Genesis 1 refers to Adam's first wife, while Genesis 2 refers to Eve, who was Adam's second wife. Eventually, this idea of a first Eve was combined with legends of the female Lilu. Now, if you don't know who that is, that's a Sumerian version of a demon. Lilu, who was worshipped, who were believed to stalk men in their sleep and prey upon women and children. However, the only explicit reference to Lilith in the Bible, I know this one, is in Isaiah 34:14. Yes, 34:14, which reads, "The wild cat shall meet with the jackals, and the satyr." Listen to this: the satyr, goat man, shall cry to his fellow. Yea, Lilith shall repose there and find her a place of rest. Now, in the Talmud and in the Midrash, Lilith is mentioned 4 times in the Babylonian Talmud. Yes, it was a Babylonian original written by Babylonian Jews in bondage. Though in each of these cases, at least that's the theory, and then it was recopied centuries later. It says, though in each of these cases, she is not referred to as Adam's wife. It says here, BT Nita 24b discusses, that's the verse, whatever, her in relation to abnormal fetuses and uncleanness, saying if an abortion had the likeness of Lilith as his mother, its mother is unclean by reason of the birth, for it is a child, but it has wings. Here we learn that the rabbis believed that Lilith had wings and that she could influence the outcome of a pregnancy. And then it says BT Shabbat 15b also discusses, or 151b, sorry, discusses Lilith warning that a man should not sleep alone in a house. You hear that? Lest Lilith fall upon him in his sleep. According to this and other texts, Lilith is a female succubus, not unlike the Lilu demons referenced above. The rabbis believed she was responsible for nocturnal emissions while a man was sleeping, and that Lilith used whatever she collected to give birth to hundreds of demon babies. Lilith also appears in Baba Batra 73a through b, where a sighting of her son is described, and in Erubin 100b, where the rabbis describe Lilith's long hair in relation to Eve. It says glimpses of Lilith's eventual association with the first Eve can be seen in Genesis Rabbah 18:4, a collection of the Midrashim about the book of Genesis. Here the rabbis describe the first Eve as a golden bell that troubles them in the night. A golden bell. It is she who troubled me all night. Why do not all other dreams exhaust a man? Yet this, a dream of intimacy, takes place, does exhaust a man, because from the very beginning of her creation, she was but in a dream. Over the centuries, the association between the first Eve and Lilith led to Lilith assuming the role of Adam's first wife in Jewish folklore. Now, that's important to know. And if you're not familiar, with what the midrash is, it's pronounced midrash, like literally. Some people say midrash, whatever, but that's not really correct. It says maybe in midrash, maybe an effort to clarify ambiguities in an ancient original or text, or to make the words applicable to current times. And midrash can feature writing that is quite scholarly and logical in nature, or can artistically make its point through parables or allegories. And then it goes on, blah, 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 and it talks about the Midrash Agada. Agada literally means a story. It's like, or a retelling of a story. That's what Agada means. So you got these different texts, and then there's these other ones, like the Midrash Halakha. It's a collection of holy books with laws and rules, things like that. So you have all these different types of books, but one of the most telling accounts of Lilith, of course, is in the Kabbalah. Now, this book was studied by these vampires very intently. They were big time into the Kabbalah. Let me tell you. It says here, she is, in the Kabbalah, you need to understand something. She's like an evil reflection of the feminine aspect of God. The truth. I know a lot of people want to believe, they were monotheistic and they only believed in one God and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good on paper, because they went back later on and they redacted and they changed everything around. But what you don't understand was that wasn't the case. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had El and Enlil, and you wouldn't have had Baal and all these others, and Hammon and all this crazy stuff going on, because all of those gods were worshipped by different tribes of Israel. And it was really predominantly in the south of Judea, where their God was Yahweh. Also, some people interpret him as Yahweh, who the Gnostics rejected as the demiurge. And they said that Jesus was not the son of Yahweh, because Jesus never refers to him, ever. He only refers to Abba God. And to them, he is the heavenly father of the cosmos. He is the head of the holy hosts who control all of these things. And in some cases, Yahweh actually works for him. But there is also the Zohar. Now, I don't know if you know what the Zohar is. It's another book. And in the Zohar, it says, she, Lilith, roams at night and goes all about the world and makes sport with men and causes them to emit their manliness. So the Zohar is another book that was written a long time ago. And when you go back and it's not really a book. If you look at what the Zohar is, it's a foundational work. Basically, like it's Kabbalistic literature that was done, and it's a group of books, basically, and it included some contemporary mystical aspects of the Torah, which really goes back to the Tanakh. The Tanakh is the original word from the Hebrew. It gets really convoluted. I mean, you can really, really get out there. And then there's Selene, which is also another name for Lilith, but that's not correct because that comes from Greek mythology, and she was the first vampire, and she was the consort of Artemis, who's actually her brother. And then other works in Luciferianism, some of them believe that she was the consort or concubine of Lucifer, the Devil King, and they called him that, the Devil King. So you have all these different versions of who she is. For the most part, a lot of people believe that she was the first vampire, and she was a queen of the vampires, and she mated with demons and the fallen archons. Samyasa was one, some people say, and then they created Samael, which was actually, some people believe that was a feminine, that was like the daughter of Lilith. Some people say it was the sister of Lilith. Different versions, different whatever. It's hard to figure out what's going on, especially when there's like brothers and sisters who are breeding with one another. You don't really know, you know. And then so you have Lilith and Semyasa doing what they're doing. He's a fallen, not a rebellious, a fallen. And then you have, you know, this weird bloodline that goes on. And so what ends up happening? A lot of people believe that she was the original wife of Eve, and that she ended up Give me 1 second, folks. Give me 1 second. Foot problem. I'm right. I'm just in pain. I moved my foot wrong. Oh, I pushed my foot back into my shoe. Good thing about pain, you get the endorphins afterwards, right? So what you are dealing with is this cult, the females in this cult, and there's not all of them, but some of them are followers of Lilith, and they are very serious about it, and they are, like I said, the flaming swords of Lilith. What they do is they revere her, they follow her, they meditate and try to find her and her descendants, and they do. They do. They meditate on it, they find it, this evil being, and they find her descendants, and it's not pleasant. A lot of times, these necromancers that do this, they've been attacked with good reason. You shouldn't be out looking for this crap, okay? But these people are vampires. Now, I saw somebody ask, "What do you think is a vampire?" What do I think is a vampire? Is somebody who takes your blood or your energy, or both. Lilith didn't just take the seed of man while they slept. She would drink their blood to replenish her energy, and in the process killed them. So a man would wake up, or a people would wake up, and the man would be dead with his bite marks. Now we know that from Solomon, Orneus was a vampire. He was the one that triggered the whole getting the ring and from God, and according to Solomon, and he used it to enslave the demons. And it was because of Orneus's misdeeds. He was a vampiric type demon. Now they're not all vampiric by a long shot. They do different things. Some of them will just devour you and eat you. Some of them will turn you into a slave, and then some of them just feed off of your energy, and then some of them wait around for you to die so they can drag you to torment, because you don't die in Christ. You don't die in God. So that is a horrible way to go. You don't want to be that person. Like I said, the Cowboys give everybody hope and then lose. Well, at least I don't have to worry about them the rest of the year. Who gives a crap? So anyway, it says here. I thought I was reading something else. Never mind. So what she did was when she joined the temple, when she finally went and she gave herself over to it, she immediately cut off contact with her family, which is what they do, not always, but her family was devout Christians, and not all of them, but some of them, and she had to get rid of them and not talk to them. And she started to realize that her grandmother would have been diametrically opposed to everything that she was doing. And so, who day, JT? Okay. Who day? You're talking about the Saints who lost today to the Eagles? That's who they are. So it's crazy when you look at, all of this information and you go back and you start trying to disseminate everything, you start to see like there is a long history of these beings doing what they do and manipulating people. And these people, I believe, these are the shock troops on the front lines that are, I'd say, foolish enough to fall in line with this crap. Because if you're born as a human, there's only so much you can do. So what they try to do is they try to turn themselves into beasts. And how they do that, they do it through shape-shifting, and they do that through drinking of blood, and they try to get themselves above, people, to be uber people, ubermensch, supermen, and that makes them closer to these devils that they serve. But you got to remember, you weren't born that. You were not one of them. And Lilith was a producer of them. She created lots of these demons. Now, one of the things, and this is interesting, if nothing else, just neat for a story, but she said one of her first missions that she was given by a high priestess in this temple so that she could gain the right to live her life on blood, which is like, wow, what a reward. But they did get a lot of power from this, at least in the physical world. And so one of her first missions was to go through this silver portal. I've told you about the silver portals that they go through. And it was for her to find, and she thinks looking back on it now, was a fool's errand, but she was to find two of the descendants of Lilith in this other world where she went, and it nearly killed her. And when we were talking about it, she couldn't remember it all. So there was no, she's like, I don't remember it all. She's like, I just remember being attacked and these winged beings. And I went back and I was upset because I felt like I was being set up to be killed. And a higher up stepped in and said, look, this woman has a lot of power. She's reincarnated. This is her third reincarnation within the temple. So apparently, as her great grandmother, she was reincarnated from somebody else. And she said that this was a pack of witches who practiced vampirism, basically, which is what that is. And so she said that she had a real hard time coming to terms with, what her station was. She wanted to be elevated back up to where she once was, but it's kind of like once you die, even if you come back, you have to start back over. Okay. So you lose a lot of your clout because you were killed. And so you come back, but you're not where you were. And that's what she believes. And she said that one of the things that she did was she began to work her way up through the ranks. And ultimately, not unlike what Rex Rude did, he went and joined forces with the vampiric reptilians. She was sent to the underworld to basically, this is what I'm talking about. This is crazy. She was sent to contact one of the unseelie courts of the Fae. Not all of them. They're not all the same. They each have their own little fiefdoms and kingdoms, and this one was within the earth, and they were a type of vampire too. Now, if you remember when I told Joel's story, he talked about a being with pointy ears and weird looking pale skin, and he just looked bizarre. And he wore like a black cloak, and warned him not to go too far down within the earth, because if you go too far down within the earth, it's not your home. It's not where you're supposed to be. It doesn't matter whether you're a vampire, werewolf, Bigfoot, whatever the hell you are. It's not where you should be. So she had to traverse not so treacherous a path as Rex, but she had to go down within the earth and form an alliance, so to speak. And hopefully she didn't get killed, because that's the only way she was going to move up. And so she had to go down there and talk to these fairy people. Of course, people like to think of them as little Tinkerbell, little with wings and the little whatever, and they're cute or whatever, or like little elves and this and that. These were not that. These beings were tall. They were pale. Some of them were solid black. As they got older, they would lose their color and they would turn black, and then they would just decay and eventually die. And there's like this burning ember within their bodies, like a flame. They don't have hearts like we do. It's like this heat signature. You can see it if they took their cloak off. And she said that she was sent down there with a guide. And I said, who is this guide? And she's like, imagine like Gollum, but less talkative. She's like, it was one of them. And she said, going into the temple, you begin to, like I've said this before with the other people, it becomes surreal to the point where you just get used to it. There's all kinds of weird nonsense going on all the time. And you just accept it as, well, this is the way it is. This is what's going on. Sometimes there were beings from other planes of existence, beings from other realms, planets, if that makes sense, if you want to call them planets. But she said that they were from different dimensions, different, realities. And the higher ups, the real higher ups would talk to them and deal with them. Now, she wasn't looked at the same as somebody who was just a new initiate. No, she had some clout because she had the bloodline, and her great grandmother was actually reincarnated from her grandmother, who was a witch. And so her and her grandmother went all the way back to the Netherlands. So that's where she got her original bloodline from. And so it was a really weird thing. She was a Merovingian. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a type of Germanic people. They conquered most of France and most of what is modern day Germany, and they had a lineage for centuries. I think it started in I don't even want to say it's wrong. It's like 450 or something like that. Let me look it up, because this is important. I need to make sure that I get this right, because the Merovingians were a big part of the bloodline of these people from the Western Europe. See if I'm right here. I think it was from like the 400s to the 700s or something like that. Let me see here. The Merovingian dynasty was a ruling family of the Franks from around the middle of the 5th century until 751. So 5th century, yeah. Okay, so yeah, middle of the 5th century, before 50 something, until 750s, right? So 300 years, yeah. But they ruled. There it is, right there. You can see the This camera's not going to let me do it. Let's see if I lighten it up a little bit there. Come on, why is it not doing it? Why is it so bright? Anyways, it would be interesting to show you, because you can see the different regions. And I'm not in the studio where we can do more stuff. I'm here at the house because I'm laid up. So it sucks. But I want to show you this, because this may come up again later on. Like I'm being messed with quite a bit. It's like someone or something doesn't want us to do this, doesn't want us to know these things. If you turn it like that, then when you go full on, it's like doesn't want to let you see it. turn it at an angle, you can kind of see it like that. Anyway, I don't know. Something's wrong here. It's not letting us see it. It's just going to be what it is. So, anyways, I can say it. I've heard this before, that these beings, one of the regions they come from is from the Merovingian dynasty. Now, Burgundy, which is not really a place, but it was in Europe and Austrasia, place that doesn't exist anymore. Bavaria, Salzburg is one of the places where they have a huge temple. I'm just going to say that. And then, of course, Cologne in the north. And then, wish I could show you the map, but I can't. But anyway, Marseille down in southern France, and then up in the north to Paris. Paris is in the north. Lyon, French. And then below them was the kingdom of the Lombards, which is another Germanic tribe that ruled that region. So a lot of people claim the heritage coming from there, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. A lot of people say that. Just like gypsies will be like, "Oh, we're Chaldeans." No, you're not. You're from India. Truth, you really are. Now, they may have come and settled in that region. Chaldean just being like a part of ancient Mesopotamia. Now, let me explain the difference between Mesopotamia, because in the East, that's a big deal too. There's an entire bloodline of these beings that come from the East. And they have a bit of a rivalry with the beings from Eastern Europe, and then from to Western Europe, and then to the Americas. They don't all get along. They're like biker gangs with different chapters, and sometimes they'll go to war with one another. It's like different sets of Crips. They'll be capping each other. They don't care. So this is what is crazy about this bloodline. When you go back and you look at the where they were placed in the Middle East, Mesopotamia was an entire region. It was an entire, but the individual countries that comprised it were like Assyria, right? The Hittites. The Hittites actually were from the country of modern day Turkey. That's where their empire was, the Hittites. And then you have the Assyrians, you have the Chaldeans, you have the Phoenicians, which is Lebanese. You have all these different peoples that no longer exist. Samaria, which was a part of Iraq. And so you have all these different places that all were from Mesopotamia. Babylon, of course, Chaldean is considered to be a part that they call themselves Babylonian, but that's not really correct. Now, why this is important, I'm going to tell you this. The Chaldeans conquered Babylon, right? So then they kind of said, "Oh, well, we're Chaldean." That's what the Germans did. The Germanic tribes, they conquered the Visigoths, the Goths, and the Vandals. They conquered Rome and said, "We're Roman." No, you're not. You can say that till your ears bleed. Doesn't make it true, So, I mean, it's just you are what you are. But a lot of people like to claim heritage that don't belong to them, and who's to argue with them, right? But I can tell you this, I'm 100% certain that originally most of the Roma who settled in Romania and in the Czech Republic and in Slovakia that were gypsy, most of them came from Gutada. A lot of them just, came on ships, and then they landed, and then they went up into the east, and then they bypassed like what would be modern day Pakistan and all that. They just kept going. And they traded, and they were in northern Africa, and they ended up in Arabia, which is not Saudi Arabia. That was Arabia. That whole region would be Arabia. And there were countless kingdoms that came and went and through that area. Now, there is a type of vampire that is known as a Chaldean vampire. And that particular vampire is where a lot of people say the myths of them having to carry their homeland with them, and they traveled into Eastern Europe by, guess what? The help of gypsies. Now, I told you that I was going to explain to you one day what Vlad the Impaler had to do with the knowledge, and what the gypsies and all that had to do with one another. One of the reasons that the Catholic Church was able to spread its influence and do what it did was because Vlad, in order to get their blessing and to continue fighting the Turks, he took a deal from the Red Pope. And that was to change his religion from Orthodox to Christian. When he did that, he gained esoteric knowledge from the Vatican libraries that had been absorbed by, in particular, gypsies, who some claim their heritage from Babylon. I don't believe that's true. I do, however, believe that they laid themselves down in Chaldea, in the cradle of, some people say, the civilization in Babylon, and they learned Babylonian magic or Chaldean magic. And Robert says Chaldean folk magic is no joke. It's not. In fact, none of this is a joke. This is not a joke at all. This to show you the scope of what one of these pupils can learn from this stuff is that, gotta move my leg. Oh. This time I'll mute it. Sorry about that. One of the things that these people learn is this type of magic, whatever. Well, all of this magic that was given to Wallachia, which was the heart of Romania, and of course Vlad, the Impaler, he was one of the reasons why it spread. It's no surprise to me that he's considered a vampire. And a lot of people believe, and I'm talking a lot of people believe, that he lived on for centuries as one of these vampires. Now, that's not far-fetched at all to me and to you, because you know better now. So all you do is you go back and you trace who he was, what he was. Some people believe that he was Count Saint Germain and that he lived for a long, long time, and he learned a way to stay alive. And it was all given to him by the Vatican, the black and red popes, as long as he continued to fight. And he rejected true Christianity, which I believe that Orthodox is a lot closer to the truth. And he accepted the esoteric knowledge. He took the devil's deal. Let's put it that way. But then again, the Order of the Dragon, what do you expect? And so one of the things that I know to be a fact, and a lot of people don't, is that there are 4 popes. A lot of people don't believe this. You can believe it if you want. It's something that I talked to Eve about. And even she was not 100% sure on it, but she said, yes, it is my understanding that there are 4. And then she began to wonder where I was getting all my information from. And I said, don't worry about that. I swallowed encyclopedias as a kid. But no, I told her, I said, extensive research, very extensive. And so, whenever I've met with Masons and people like that, they always think that I have somehow gained access to the Masonic libraries. And what I tell them is your knowledge is not necessarily hidden like you think it is. Life is an open book test. And all of this information is available to you and I if you really try. And I hope to someday, when I'm able to walk and this evil is taken off of me and I'm able to do and go around and walk and do things, that I can try to get together and get a list of books that you can get started on. Very basic stuff, just learning about who Baal was. Who's Baal? Like, who is he? What is he? Because there was a lot of different ones. It wasn't just one. The main antagonist, though, I would say probably would be Baal Haman against, the children of Israel, whatever. But the children of Israel were all divided. They were all saying, I worship God, I worship God, I worship God. But they had a bunch of different names. Like some of them believed that Haman was God. Some of them believed that Moloch was God. And I think that what they did, they went back and they changed it all in the Bible to make it fit, that there was just one guy. There wasn't all these other versions of him. And even the rabbis themselves, the scholars, I've had a lot of them tell me, not a lot, but a few, tell me that there was a lot of redacting and a lot of changing around. You can see it in the ancient texts because they wanted it all to fit. And they did not want to be polytheistic like the rest of their counterparts in the Middle East. When I talked to Eve about this, there was a lot of communicating about the different rules and laws and things that they had and the different demon gods, little g, that controlled a lot of these different, regions and things like that. So I asked her this point. Now, this is what she said. I said, what is the difference between a demon, a fallen angel? I know, but I wanted to know what she knew. A jinn and a fairy. And she says, a name. She's like, just a name. It's all it is. They're just different spiritual principalities in different regions. They call them this over there in Ireland. They call them this in England. They call them this in Germany. This is what they're called in Romania. This is what they're called in Bulgaria. This is what they're called in Russia. You get the point, right? Mongolia, China, all the way to Japan. They all have different names. And they don't all look the same. They don't all act the same. They don't all function the same. And in the Middle East, they're called jinn. Now, when you stop and you look at the difference, people say, well, they have different names, but they're different. Yeah. We as people should all really just definitely avoid them at all costs. And I think that one of the problems with studying this stuff is you got to be careful that you don't get too caught up in it. And you don't want to let something slip through where you think, ooh, this is cool. Because it's not cool. Remember, whatever you're doing, no matter how far down that rabbit hole you go, you have to come back out, right? And you have to be tethered to God. Because if you're not and you slip and you lose yourself, that is the worst thing you can do. I've seen it happen. It hasn't happened to me. But people are not, and this is not, please don't take this as like, oh, this guy thinks she's something. No. But a lot of people don't have the willpower that I do. They don't have the mental fortitude and the spiritual strength to push through this information and fluff it off. People read it, and the first thing they think is, man, what I could do with this. And then they do some stupid thing. You know how many times I've seen people do these ridiculous things because they don't understand. They don't get it. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Bible is a very, especially in the Old Testament, it's just very like basic, whatever. And it was cut down by the Council of Nicaea in 325. And it was just a book that was made for control. The Bible doesn't really exist. And people get so mad when you say that. That's why these people want to kill me, because I'm telling them the truth. And they do not want to hear that. So talking to this woman, I asked her, I said, your journey into the underworld, what was it like? She said, well, I didn't do it physically because it was too dangerous. I told her that there were people who should claim that they did do it. She goes, I've heard of it. I've heard of them using their own body. She's like, but it's just too much. She's like, it's also a danger trying to go down there, but there's ways to do it to shore yourself up. So she went down with two other beings. Now, she did accept that other, that which I call a demonic attachment. That's just what it is. Let's call it what it is. But she said that the other that she had was very powerful, very ancient, very old, very strong, and it had dealt with these beings before. So when they went down into the underworld and she was able to communicate with them, I said, what did they look like? She said, they're very tall, very gaunt. She's like, they don't speak. They only use like mind speak or whatever. And she's like, and they don't take kindly to strangers. And when you're intruding in a spiritual way, she's like, it's a very real risk that they could decide that you're just an interloper and they could imprison you. And I was like, imprison you spiritually? And she said, yes. So I asked her this. I said, does it look like a silver ball? She goes, yes. It's kind of like Pokemon. And in fact, a lot of people think that Pokemon is demonic for that reason, because they use those spheres that demons are actually imprisoned in. And they actually, they release them to do whatever. That's what warlocks and witches actually do, really powerful ones. They can use them as a sort of slave, but they have to have a seriously powerful overseer that can deal with that. And typically those are younger versions of demons. They're not these ancient old ones that are real tricky and whatever. You're not going to imprison them. You're not going to trick them. That's like taking a trap out into the woods and it's a bear trap, and you got this really old crafty bear who can take the bait out and ignore your trap. They're damn near human level intelligence, you know, but these beings, they're beyond that. You're not going to trap them. You're not going to trick them. There's no negotiating with them and talking to them. They may tell you a truth just so they can set you up for a bigger lie. And there's nothing to be gained by dealing with them other than going to hell, because that is the end game. You'll end there. You'll end up there, and you'll end up there before they do. So what is the purpose? What do you get out of that? So when you're dealing with these types of beings, one of the things she said was that they demanded a lot, you know, to cut a deal, so to speak. And so they kept her there for about a year. And she said that she was in and out of her body. She would go back into her body very briefly. And she was in a sort of stasis, and they would drip blood into her because she drinks blood. This is what they do, folks. I'm telling you, you can think this is cuckoo bananas. You can think I'm crazy. I don't care. I don't care. I'm telling you what's real. And so that she would drink the blood, and then she would go back. And they basically imprisoned her. And then, you know, like she was like a hostage, let's put it that way, not in a cage. But she stayed there and she learned with them and worked with them. And she realized that these particular beings were of the same lineage as these original demons who were from the fallen archons, and that they were another lineage that had broken away. And I said, well, where were they originally from? And she said this: they were Chaldean, Babylonian. I said, so these were fairy, but they were vampiric. And she says, yes, just as the Vril are reptilian vampires. And I said, how common is it that these beings become vampires? And she says, it just depends on the bloodline. Not all of these beings do that. She's like, but all of them will eat people. Absolutely. She said, they'll eat people for sure. And she said that they thrived on the blood of the innocents. And that was one of the things that they had in common. And eventually she was able to bring a couple of them to the surface. They were like emissaries, and they came and they met at the temple. They had never communicated with the human vampires before. And so I asked her if she could give me a hierarchy of this. And she said, yeah. She said these beings would be right below the old ones, the ancient ones, the ones that were winged, gargoyle-looking, Nosferatu-faced looking beings. And those even themselves were a type of hybrid. Don't really know where they came from. She says the stories go back, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And these beings had been around for a long time, and that the world was a lot older than we thought it was. And she said that they had lived under the earth for a long time. And how they ended up in contact with these werewolf type creatures was just, you know, birds of a feather. You know, they managed to communicate with them and get them to join forces with them. And they formed the first alliance of the subnature. Okay. And then they were able to get others, like, you know, dwarves and goblins and gnomes and elves and things like that. Each one with their own lineage, their own bloodline. These dervish swirling wind type beings that ate blood by stripping the skin off of people in the Middle East. It's a crazy thing. And he said that they had all these different categories of vampiric type creatures, but they all originally came from that particular species. And some of these beings, elves, not the same as fairies, though. Those are different. People don't understand that. Those are different things. Two different things. Elves are more flesh-like. They're like an in-between state, kind of like a metaphysical, whereas fae or fairies are more like, they can be interchangeable, but more than likely you're calling it by its wrong name. Those particular beings are spiritual, heavily armored, powerful beings. Like, I mean, armored is in like formidable. They're very formidable, and you don't want to mess with them. You don't want to piss them off. And she said that these were very tall, very, very statuesque beings, and that they had really long fingers. And she said that the work that she did with them and making an alliance with them was big because it gave them a toehold, because their cousins are some of the beings that run the British Isles. That's their land. That's the unseelie court of the British Isles. And that these beings had a heritage between them and the Chaldeans. The Chaldean being the vampiric lineage, and Ireland, I think in particular, and Scotland, I think she said, that was the other lineage. It was that mixed with this vampire. Because these vampires' goal is to spread themselves around and create more of what they are. So if you look at a petri dish and you laid bacteria in there and it just starts to proliferate, that's what these things do. That's what they do. That's what their goal is. Pixies are a type of fairy. Yes. And then there's different kinds. There's kinds in the air, kinds in the water, different beings that inhabit different areas. The ones in the water, the undine, like the female ones, those are really, really bad. Very powerful. Very powerful. So powerful that they can put up like energy above these bodies of water that can knock the flying ones out of the air, and they'll eat them. So a lot of times when they're like, oh, they can't cross over this water because of blah, 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 the main reason they can't cross over that water is because of what's in it. It's not just because of some sort of electromagnetic energy. There's another type of, and I can't think of the name of it. It's not a pixie. There's another one. There's a sprite, but I can't remember the name of that other one. You watch. As soon as I get off the air, I'll remember it too. It's like the same way. It's XIE, something IXE, but I can't remember what the first letter designations are. Yes, please hit the like button and subscribe, please, folks. Brownies are basically duende. They're like little brown creatures, whatever. I already had a whole idea about how it was, but then talking to some of these people, they kind of changed it and said, no, you got it wrong. This is this and that. I don't know. Maybe they would know more than me. I mean, they're the ones dealing with these beings, not me. Thank God. But I think you got to be really careful, though. People go out in the woods and they'll be like, oh, I'm communicating with them. I'm talking to them. Man, you don't know what that is. And they're shapeshifters, too. A lot of these, I'm telling you, a lot of people are walking around this earth right now. And I promise you, they are not human beings. They are absolutely not human beings. And I've had people ask me point blank. I was at a bar one night a couple of years ago. Is it Nixie? I don't know if that's correct or not. You can look it up, see what that is. That sounds right. But they were like asking me a question. They were like, do you believe in all this? Because the bar was haunted and we were talking about ghosts and what it could be. And they were seeing this little ball of light that was bouncing around. And I'm like, that's not a ghost. I mean, there's orbs, but there are also, somebody just said sprites. That could be a sprite. That could be anything. What, did you get a good look at it? No. And so they were like, you really believe all of this stuff? You know, blah, blah, blah. I said, I don't believe all of it, but I believe a lot of it. And I said, why is it so hard to believe? You're here, you're a being, and there are tons and tons of weird things that happen to people. People see Bigfoot, they see aliens, alien abduction, there's ghosts, people's light switches getting turned off and then they get pushed out of bed. Like what? I mean, this stuff happens to people all the time. And still people are like, yeah, I just don't believe it. Yeah, I woke up, there was this big hairy creature there, smelled real bad, pulled me out of my bed. I just started kicking and screaming and I stood up and it was gone. Figment of my imagination. But it grabbed you and pulled you out of your bed. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It was something my mind did. creating a weird effect that caused my legs to kick myself. And I basically, yeah, it was hard. I kicked my own ass. Yeah, I basically just, I beat my own ass up. It was crazy. I don't know how I did it, but I know somehow there's a scientific explanation because our science is so advanced. Well, we figured it all out. Yeah. No such thing as these other beings. They don't exist. That's a big problem because I'm not telling you that you should walk out of your house on your way to the grocery store or Walmart or wherever the hell you're going and be like, there's evil beings all around me. Ah. But there are evil beings all around you all the time. Now, I don't think you should run around in fear and act like a fool and whatever, but, be aware. It's like being in the ocean. The ocean is wide open. Imagine if you lived in Africa and you lived in a savanna area. People do. And you're outside smoking a cigarette and you hear lions running up. Well, guess what? They can reach you. There's no ocean separating them like there is here in America, where if you see a lion here, it's like, oh, escape from a zoo. No, they're just out there running around wild. And so are hyenas, huge packs of them, dude. And so you got to stop and think, hey, man, I'm in Africa. Maybe these things could hurt me. Maybe I need to be really cautious and careful. People don't do that. They're just like, oh, what are the odds that you'll run into some kind of wildlife out there that'll hurt you? Pretty good chance, yeah. There's certain places, yeah, especially, yeah, it's a pretty good chance it can happen. Absolutely. But these people they just believe like it's not going to happen. Hell, there's tigers running around in Russia. Go to Kamchatka or the Taiga region, not tiger or taiga. The taiga doesn't mean tiger, but there's tigers there. The Sanderban. Go to India, right? And you're out there like, oh, they're just as afraid of us. Ah! No, dude, they're not afraid of you. Nothing really is afraid of people. Unless they know that you have something in your hand that can hurt them and they're used to seeing it. Other than that, look at yourself. What do other predators have to be afraid of? You're a prey animal, man. I'm telling you. And people act like this is the zoo. They're just going to wander around and, oh, look at that demon there. Haha. No. And these things are running around loose, free. There will come a time when that's not a problem, but it is now, right? Why they're free to roam around as evil spirits, I have no idea. I can't tell you. I mean, I have an idea, but I mean, if I said things, people would just start getting mad and jumping out of the chat because I'm being horrible, because I'm not going along with what they were taught to believe. So I could tell you what I think, but it's just not time for that. I believe right now, what I'm telling you right now is true. I do believe that these things are out there and they cut deals with each other, but that doesn't mean that they're on the same team necessarily. They make alliances just like countries do. But do they care? Do they really stick by it? No, they don't. They just don't. And so to put it in perspective, the Chaldean vampire, being one of the oldest and most ancient of the bloodlines, go back to, I think it was Nebuchadnezzar. In fact, I know it was. Nebuchadnezzar was Chaldean. People say Babylonian, but that's only because it was in the same region as what was once Babylon. The Chaldeans conquered it and they took over as the Babylonians. It's the regions that they're in. People don't understand that. They don't get it. Because I had somebody ask me, what's the difference between Mesopotamia and Samaria? I'm like, they're the same thing, except Samaria was in Mesopotamia. DC. That's basically how, people don't understand. Geography is very important. If you studied a map of the ancient world, you would know a lot more about this than because so many people, they don't understand it. And when I tell them to go and do some research in history, and they're just like, well, I would, but I'm just going to eat this croissant, and then go to sleep. They're not going to do it. Just be honest. And so people have a hard time following and grasping that level of knowledge because, well, It's hard. It is. It's a lot of reading and it takes a lot of work. And you also have to learn a little bit about the languages and what these translations are and what they mean. And the way that they talk too was completely different because you can ask someone a question. Let me just take one of you guys from the chat, Amy Krill. Why the name Amy Krill? Right? I said that, right? So she knows, oh, well, my mother named me Amy or my dad named me Amy, right? But if I typed it, why the name Amy Krill? She's going to be like, what name? What are you talking about? Like, she's not going to read it the same way. Unless you word it a certain way, like, why were you named Amy? Then you'll understand, right? She says, my parents were boring. That's why. See, there you go. But you might not understand how I'm wording it if I don't say that. See, that's the key. And so when things were written a certain way, you also have to look at the vernacular. Like, there is so much lost in translation from these texts. Even when the information is right there, it still has to be interpreted correctly because people don't do their due diligence, and then you have problems. And then people come up with some wacky darn bullcrap, and you're just like, I can't make heads or tails. So then you get this, well, let's redo it. Let's go back and let's gloss it up a little bit, make it look nicer. Let's make it all fit because there's like 15 different people being talked about. Let's break it down to just one person and one God. Right? Too much going on. That's a problem. One of the things that these beings did away with was just written words. They didn't write and they didn't talk. They used, mind speak with images and things like that. So she figured out like how to communicate with them, what they were trying to say, what they were trying to do. And she said that one of the things that shocked her was how little these things had been to the surface. But there was a population of human-like beings. He said human-like because they looked different than us, but they were really humans. And they didn't live far from these beings. And those beings were at constant war with those human beings. And she thinks that they were more akin to like cattle, that they're using them as food, but that the humans try to fight back. But they were allowed to, propagate and have a whole bunch of people, and so they began to rebel. So they outnumber these beings, but these beings are super duper powerful and they have allies. She didn't go into a lot of specifics, but just said, hey, there's others that are not the same as them, but they're allies. And so you have this hierarchy of this like, descending downward hierarchy. At the top, you have those original beings that were that hybrid. They were like created. It was a very powerful form. They're not good with sunlight. That's where a lot of the myths come from, that they can't, because in the sun, it burns them. They're not really, so they come out at night. It doesn't make them evaporate, but it weakens them and hurts them, which is a problem for a lot of alien species. Our sun is very volatile and it can burn you. Okay. If you're pale and you go out to the beach, well, guess what? You're going to be Larry the Lobster, right? Larry from SpongeBob. You're going to be Larry the Lobster. You're going to look like crap because you get burned, right? Now, for me, being half Hispanic, I have an advantage. I can get a real nice tan. But if I go out there and I do it like just few hours in one day, I'm going to be burned. So I try to avoid it, and just take it a little bit at a time where it'll come naturally. And I've had some summers where I had a really nice tan because my skin will tan. So these beings avoid the light, but they had other beings that they created that they turned into a type of vampiric entities. Not the least of which was the Vril, basically the reptilians, who became a bloodthirsty type of vampire. And they basically fought a war with each other, and the vampires converted a bunch of them into a subspecies of vampiric reptilians. Those are the ones that a lot of people say are in charge. Then you have another bloodline that goes down, and these were like these elf-like creatures. And then there were these creatures, these weird, tall, gaunt-looking creatures that you can't really classify as just one type of being. There's a whole bunch of them, a whole bunch of different ones. And so when you stop and you look at all these different types of beings, you can kind of label them and figure out what's what. And there's different types that are really evil, like the red caps and whatever. You know, you have these ones in Iceland with the big black eyes, and they're really violent and evil. They kill people in the caves, blah, blah, blah. And so you got this whole subcategories going on, and then splintering off, different groups splintering off. Her job, though, was predominantly working with that particular species. And there's a lot to unwrap there. There's too much to go into today. So I had to kind of lay the groundwork once again for a follow-up episode. But she had told me that she had this one particular entity, and he had a name, but it didn't make sense. It was just like a sing-song, something in your head. And she said that basically their names were like musical notes, and that he was pretty laid back, considering like some of the other ones of his species were warlike and violent. He was more of like the priesthood class, and they did have an entity that they revered. And he was very much like Moloch. He was like a bull-headed god. Not surprising, considering they were from Chaldean descent. And she said that they revered him, and they did make burnt offering to him. And they did blood sacrifice, which is what they did. And they would do it with multiple different types of beings. You know, she said that when she was down there, she witnessed them bringing out all kinds of different creatures. Some were like regular animal-looking things, and some were people. Some were species she had never seen before, and she didn't want to ask too many questions. Eventually, she did begin to be comfortable enough asking questions, because she had to get comfortable with the main people who were in charge. And if you ask too many questions too quickly, then you could end up on the chopping block, literally. And so one of the things that she told me that I thought was interesting was that these beings, they had no use for the lycanthropy. Like those particular beings had no love for the dog man, werewolf, whatever you want to call it. And they wanted them to stay away from them. They were just like not okay with it. And she witnessed one of them like grab and choke one of these lycanthropy practicing people and nearly kill him, because they just detested them. They were very guarded against animalistic type beings. They did have enemies, and one of their main enemies was reptilians. Not the vril. They were okay with them because they were a type of vampire. So it's like, become a vampire and you're okay with all these other species that are vampires, but know your place. Or you are one of these other species and you're all going to be enemies of the vampires, because of the vampiric type entities. They drink blood and they take energy. They're parasites, pure parasites. Most of these beings are in different ways. The lycanthropy practicing individuals, though, practicing shape-shifting and things like that, they did learn some of that by dealing with different types of entities. One of their allies, one of the werewolf's allies, were these little Dewende gnome type creatures. They had made a pact with them a long time ago. So you had sort of like this uneasy balance between them and these vampiric witches. And they had different entities that were their close associates and allies. The bird people, as people would call them, like they were this type of like harpy type beings or whatever. Not good friends with the vampires, but they rolled with the werewolf dogman type beings. Okay with them. I don't know. Maybe because they're both anthropomorphic beings. I have no idea. That part I don't know. I still have not figured that out yet. I haven't had somebody tell me. I've asked her, asked Carlos, Joel, and I asked what's his face, Gerald. Nobody really could tell me why that was. It's something that went way back. I think maybe that they were created alongside one another. Maybe they work together, because if you notice, like ravens and wolves work together. I'm just shot in the dark there. I don't know. So there's a lot of people doing work on the vampire thing. If I hadn't ended the show, there was a guy who was going to do a collaboration with me. He's got a podcast, and he's been talking about the vampire cults and things like that. And there's other people getting this information too as we speak. I'm not the only one. Now, like I said before, this is not my opinion, and I'm not presenting this as facts. I'm presenting this as someone claiming these are their facts. Now, at this time, anybody wants to ask questions. Cooper Young says, "What is this? Would you read?" I don't really have time right now. I got a lot going on. If I had time, I promise I would, but I just don't, man. I just do not have time. Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar himself was Chaldean. Human being, any reliable source recommendations for, as in what? What are you asking for? Because I don't have a copy of their little satanic book, so I don't know what to tell you. There is a ton of information out there, though. If you go back and don't just Google it. Like I said before, there's another type of can't remember the name of it. There's another search engine. It's a Russian search engine, and you know what? I'll put it in Paranormal Roundtable group. But if you just try to Google it, you're probably not going to come up with a lot of results for this kind of information. It's forbidden knowledge, dude. So what you're going to want to do is look for information, and God, a lot of it's not in English either. That's another problem. If you don't read other languages, I was talking about this on Abe's show one night because I can read other languages. That's a problem, because if you're not able to read, but nothing but, and DuckDuckGo is not going to get you there either. That what we figured out is, like, it doesn't track your history or whatever, but it still doesn't. It's giving you the same results as the Google. But that's all it does. I mean, and I don't care about them whatever tracking my history. I don't give a crap. They already know everything anyway. You're just going to want to go to different places where you can find these books, but a lot of these books are not in English. I do believe they were at one time. I think that's by design. I think that they're trying very hard to keep us ignorant, because a lot of countries around the world are stopping the spread of knowledge. And the United States you're still able to get this knowledge, but you have to look. You have to know where to look. And you need to read about these different legends and stories. Go down the rabbit hole. Find the source of the books when you look it up, and then go to those books. Find them. Find those books. It may be hard. You're probably not going to find them on Amazon, but you can hunt these books down that have this information that can give you the information. But some of this stuff, you're only going to get it through a source like someone like Eve or Joel. You're not going to be able to get, because they're on the inside track. They know what this is. And so you have to try to do your homework, guys. I'm telling you. A lot of people don't want to read the Gnostics. Well, don't do it at your own peril, because you're not going to know what's really going on. If you don't want to read those books, don't read them. If you want to believe that it's all bad and whatever, then keep taking the blue pill. That's all I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to push it on you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to force you to go read these books. And reading the Kabbalah could be dangerous if you're somebody who doesn't know how this works. Sailor Nemesis says, what happens to a vampiric being that drank and that they don't? First of all, they can, when it comes to the human component of them, the spiritual supersedes everything. right? It supersedes everything. Like if the body is the state, then the spirit is the federal government. So they can cleanse all of that. It's not something that they have to worry about. Hell, they bathe in the black goo, which is graphene. Well, partly. And it's the Hydra. Yes, Yandex. There you go. Yandex is a search engine, one of the search engines, and you can find a lot of it, but even that may not get you everything you need because you really need to find these books, and there are a lot of them. But be careful because some of these books are forbidden. Now, I'm going to say this. There's a book that's a forbidden book, and I don't like to say the name, but then I thought about it the other day, and I was like, I probably should say the name of it just so that people will not stumble upon it. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the name of it, but please, if you can, if in any way, avoid this particular book. You don't want to read it. It is actually protected by dark elves. You don't want to mess with it. And it's called the Shams al-Ma'arif. The Shams al-Ma'arif, okay? It's a 13th century book. You don't want to mess with that book. I'm telling you, even if you come across any of these other books, read them, be careful with them. Don't use them for what some of them are intended to. You could learn a lot from them, but you definitely don't want to. It says here, Josh, have you heard that Judas was the first vampire? I don't agree with that. This is my opinion. I've heard stuff like that, yeah. But when you stop and you go back and you look at these books and then you start to compare like one of these ancient texts with another one, you start to realize like, wow, there's a lot of the same stuff in here as is in here. And then you realize that these religions have a commonality. And you realize that a lot of the language originally just comes from one place. You know, it's like all of this stuff just starts to blend together and creates a tapestry of what is the history of our civilization. And then you start to understand the nature of reality, the true nature of reality. So that's it. All right. So I just thought, because there were a couple people who messaged me about the Shams al-Ma'arif and asked me about it, if that was the book I was talking about, and one of them had stumbled onto it and was downloading it. And I'm like, do not do that. I'm telling you, 100% right now, do not do that. Even having copies of it on your computer could cause you some serious problems. Do not do it. Thank you for that donation, Miguel. He says, here's my end of the week cult fee. I think I'm going to keep my Kool-Aid stained cult robe and try for a tie-dye. I'd love to bring joy to the cult. I love tonight's show. It's definitely in my top 5. Love you guys. Well, we try to do our best, and we try to bring you the information. Sucks that I'm not able to do it in the studio where the sound is better and I'm not hobbled. It sucks. But I'm still here doing it, and as long as I keep my foot a certain way. Under Fire says, what does he say here? What is the Hydra, Josh? You've mentioned it several times and would like to know if you could share with us exactly what it is. Probably rather talk about that on Rumble. I can say this, that it is something that comes from the black darkness, goo, whatever. But it's also being put into people. It reacts to 5G and it can split off and break off. And it's something that is a naturally occurring evil thing that they mix with nanotechnology to make it more powerful, more potent. So there you go. Dacius Hammer says, what's the big deal about it? It's just a parasite. What are you talking about? And then Evan asks about the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Key of Solomon. Yeah. I mean, what are my thoughts? That's a huge question. I've did an entire show on this and I've talked about it multiple times. What are you trying to know? Like specifics. Give me specifics. I mean, I've read Song of Solomon, Key of Solomon, Lesser Key of Solomon. Like it's just Very good question. Oh, she said, Dacius Amber, what's the big deal? Okay. I'm not going to get snarky, but that's not really a smart. I mean, what do you mean? What's the big deal? Are you really being serious right now? Really? This is how things happen right here, because that really aggravates me. Okay. Amber, I like you. We're not enemies, But to make comments like that is a little, that's a little off, whatever. It is a big deal because people die. That's why. I could go on to Rumble and do a whole show about it if you want me to. I mean, that's, it says, Josh, is it possible for vampires to be inside the government? Yes. Especially the real parasites or demonic. Yes, they are. And demons are parasites. A doctor taught you about it. What did the doctor teach you about, though? Did that doctor just tell you, yeah, it's just some graphene in there, blah blah blah, it's magnetized, whatever? No, it's more than just a parasite. It replicates and it goes from person to person, and you shed it. I mean, it is beyond like what the big deal. There's a big deal behind it. And anyway, it says here, parasites of demons. What else we got? I want to answer some questions here. Do you think it's protected by dark elves as well? Which book? What do you know of the removed Gnostic book of the Bible, the Gospel of Judas? It's just told from his perspective. It may be real, it may not. I don't know. Exactly. Howard says, don't mess with stuff you aren't prepared to tackle, but seriously, certain books are pure evil. Stay clear. That's exactly right. I don't recommend reading some of the books I've read. There's one in particular, a Coptic Christian gave me. He's an Assyrian friend of mine years ago. He gave me, and not Syrian, not from Syria. No, Assyrian. He's Assyrian, another region of Mesopotamia. But as an Assyrian, he gave me the heads up on a book that I had on my shelf and that I was getting ready to read. And I thought better of it, but I kept the book. And then years later, I looked at it. I'm still not real sure what I think of it. It translates in English. He translated it for me pretty good. Oh man. Hold on one second, folks. I'll be right back. So to adjust myself, and I want you to hear me. And another thing too, Amber says, like, we don't know how to help people to save people in the body. Yeah. Here's the thing. It goes beyond just that. That's just one thing that they're doing with this. This thing it goes beyond just that. I mean, like, that's something I can't even talk about it here, but that's not, I know what you're referring to, but it goes beyond that, what it is. So that's what I mean, like, and it is not good. There it is right there. There's a good Hyperstorm says, think of books like a frequency. You're the radio receiver of the signal. They aren't just books. Be smart. Yeah, exactly. What is the significance of the color red? Well, there's a lot of significance of the color red. I mean, everybody has something to say about the color red. The communists believed in red. That was their thing. The Nazis, who were diametrically opposed to communism, actually believed in the color red. Everybody has something about the color red. The Romans revered the color red. The cloaks that the Roman soldiers wore, the centurions in particular, they wore them. They were red. Red is the color of the blood. It's a big deal. Jesus' blood was red. I mean, it's like, it goes on and on and on. That's the color red. Everybody has this sort of thing about it. So I'm getting behind here. I'm trying to catch up. Yes, it was, Jimmy. It's funny too, because my friend that was Assyrian, they were from Chicago. There's a community of them there. Thank you for giving that donation, serving. Says, thanks for all the information and awesome shows, dude. Your show helps me stay awake and alert during my 12-hour night shifts. I'll be praying for you and your family, especially for your gout. And please pray that my body will be healed. I thought it was going to start hitting my elbow last night, and it was just so bad. It's put a lot of pressure on my other joints. Could be, Smurfy. That's a very good comment, too. I did. Just came to me. Black goo, not just a parasite, but once inside you, becomes a gateway for perfect possession. Yep, Patsy. It also stands for anger and passion. Passion is a very big deal, and so is anger. Mm-hmm. What information did I get that makes you think the Vril? No, the Vril actually are reptilians. They can look like people, and but they shapeshift. So there's a belief that a lot of people in positions of power, a lot of them are actually just wearing the fake, like they're pretending to be, but they're not. They're actually reptilians. Where's Meghan Markle? Anybody know? Yes. Are those books demonic? That's why you say be careful. Yes, the Shams al Ma'arif is definitely one of them. I would be very careful with that book. There's others too, like Prodigies of Egypt, and I can't even. There's so many. You know, the Simon Necronomicon, another horrible nightmare fuel book. It's part of Crowley's work, like they put in there. Well, here's something interesting. John Whedon says, I was told years ago that green was the evilest of colors. Never told why. Have you heard this, Josh? Yes, but also no. I've heard that green is really evil because in Islam, I don't know, it depends on who told you that. Green is the color of envy, it's the color of jealousy. But also, emeralds are considered to be one of the most potent esoteric of the gems. They hold a lot of power, just like rubies. But I disagree. I don't think any one color is more evil than any other. I think it's all a matter of perspective. I think green's a very beautiful color. It's the color of most plants. But we do see a lot of cases, we hear about a lot of cases where people see green mist or green orbs, green, smoke and things like that. I think it has something to do with the calf, which is where these people come from, these beings, according to the Arabian legends that predate Islam. Even it talks about it in the Quran, but it predates that. These beings, they come from the green mountains of the calf, which is Q. It starts with a Q. It's not calf as in CA or whatever. Any questions you guys have about anything at all? I'm going to give you, a few minutes here just to ask questions, just in general. If you have anything at all, I'm not going to shy away from any question. Thank you for that donation, Underfire. I appreciate it. It says, in Jesus Christ's holy name, I tie, bind, and rebuke any evil forces attacking Josh and his family. I take authority over those attacking Josh and sent back sevenfold to those who are casting spells. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I need the prayers more than anything. Huh. Good question. Are actors shapeshifters? Which ones? I believe there are probably some. That's a good question about the blue blood. Yes, I have heard of this. Different context, though. I've heard of people who have it. So. And this person says, Omega, what is this? Omega Tony is okay. Josh, have you gone into the Nephilim looked like clowns or parasites can be demons rabbit hole? Well, I think when you look at the whole clown aspect of it and why some people, I've gotten reports of people, so we could do a whole show on that. In fact, that's a good idea. We have enough now. When I was looking at the archives, I noticed I didn't create it, but somebody did. And there was a whole, there's a guy that goes and does our whatever and puts the shows together and stuff. And he asked me about that, if there was a clown, whatever, because he had a friend who had a story. And I said, yeah, I found one the other day, and it says on there, clown encounters. Now, it has a couple that we've talked about on the show. There was like a werewolf-looking creature that was hiding behind the mask of a clown, like at a carnival. That doesn't surprise me, but I think what we're dealing with that is that these beings were trying to hide themselves with paint and whatever, and they disguised their weird misshapen faces and put on big baggy clothes to hide their facade. And they did it under the veneer of like, oh, I'm a clown, and they put a big smiley face on themselves, which that would make sense, especially if they were traveling from town to town and they had one of these sub-natured beings with them and they wanted to hide them in plain sight. Why not? I mean, I think there's something to that. But there's also this whole theory that these Nephilim, some of them looked like clowns. I would say yes, just because they were misshapen, Yes, the flying dog man that keep attacking people. Yeah, I've heard of this. Do I know anything about it? So far, nobody from Brazil has given me any stories about the flying dog man as of late. Now, we did have a couple a while back, but nothing since then. And D True says the movies always show vampires and werewolves doing battle. Is there any truth to that war? Yes, because before they became friends, they were enemies. Because here's what I was told: when someone is bitten and they accept that the parasite, which I think is what it is, of the shape shifting lycanthrope, they can't become a vampire. The vampires had no answer for that. They could not bite them and turn them into, or make them ingest blood. They couldn't turn them from what they were. So that was an issue. So they set about trying to destroy one another. So I think it's something that goes way back, but for the most part, they work together. They're in the same temple. And what I mean by that is not the dog man that people talk about, because there's so many people that want to believe that dog man is just some sort of animal that, I've already grown past that, dude. Like, people want to still believe that, let them believe it. I don't care. I'm on another path, at this point. So, and somebody made a little snarky comment the other day. They're like, "Oh, well, Josh Turner has already, denounced Dogman and believes in all this werewolf crap." And then somebody was like, "Good, and let him get left behind." And it was the person that talks like that. And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. Let me get left behind. Y'all go ahead into all of this amazing research that you've done, because you're also smart and your IQs are so high up there, dude. I couldn't possibly know what the F I'm talking about. So let me just go and babble on to people who want to hear it, and then y'all do your thing and keep looking for this magical dog boy or whatever it is that you're going to find out in the woods of the LBL or whatever stupid crap, and kill it with swords and spears, arrows, whatever the hell you want to do. Do whatever you want. I don't care. We're behind, guys. You're so far behind in the race, though. You think you're in the lead. You keep doing that, little trooper. Keep running around circles, man. Lap yourself, dude. You're doing awesome. Keep it going. Keep bringing people on there and not knowing how to interview and just talk and go, well, that's interesting. Anybody else want to come on and say something? Yeah, whatever, dude. You're doing great. Human Being says, random thought. Wouldn't it be hilarious if we'll start a stream with one of those monster Halloween masks in October? I think I have started a couple streams with different masks. Giant sized puppets? No. Have you ever thought about not supporting this platform anymore where we don't have freedom of speech? Yes. Give me another one where we do have freedom of speech. I know there's Rumble. Problem with Rumble is it's very janky and people aren't subscribed. So I only got like maybe 2,000 subscribers over there. It's that. People will go there, though. They'll pile in and I'll get thousands of views, but people don't want to subscribe. It's a simple thing. But then you don't get people that want to participate. And they're always saying they can't figure out how to make it work. And Rumble is being attacked now. They're probably going to tear it down. I mean, it's just, I don't know. People didn't really support it, so it was hard for me to justify being on it. Sorry to hear that, Haunted Heart. You're dealing with a broken right ankle and broken left toes. Oh, man. It's hard. It's really hard. My brother just recently broke his foot. But I'm going to tell you right now, dude, the pain, it's like it's there and then they fix it and it's okay. As long as you're not, walking or whatever. This crap the pain doesn't stop. It just keeps going. It's unbelievable. It's like they're crystals created by purines, and they needle like crystals, they're shards, and they just stab you, and it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going. Trying to get some of these really good questions here. And Smurfy says, what time does the Iron Bear close? I don't know. Ask your buddy Barton. He would know more about that than me. In fact, it was him and Roger that made that up. So go ask them that. Is this? I have a recurring dream of me looking at myself and my sis and mom standing looking up at the sky. We're all scared. I was always awake, but I always wake up before I can turn around to see what. Okay, that's crazy. Supposedly, this is the question. Jules Spiteri says, "Wolf, are there any good-natured fairies?" Supposedly, there are. There are those that are evil, those that are good, and those that just want to be left alone and are pretty neutral as long as you don't mess with them. My advice to you is to not mess with any of them, not deal with any of them whatsoever. Josh Cutchin, like look at his book, Trojan Feast. And I would go and check that out. I have copies of it. I'd love to do a giveaway, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to be up and around and walk, so I'm going to have to wait. But I will be giving away some of his books. Take a look into that because there is a Sealy court and an unsealy court. Now, the unsealy court is unclean, evil, whatever, and the Sealy court is good. So then you have these two different factions, you know. I don't know. I think they're probably just like people. What books do you recommend for numerology? Glynis McCants. Just look her up. Glynis McCants. Simple as that. She does really good work on it. How do you feel about our government and the actions that seem to be evil? I think you pretty much know that already if you've been paying attention to the show. Let me see here. That's interesting. Trevor Law says, I've seen the girl's eyes manifest. They turned yellow with black slits. It was after I said, even though I was in a dark place, I still believe in Jesus. I felt like she was an energy vampire. Probably was. I'm way behind. I'm trying to catch up, folks. Give me one. Okay, let me get some other questions here. It says, Josh, did you tell us in recent live Abba is the only name? Yes, Jesus refers to God as Abba Father, or he just says my Father. What do you think about the esoteric book called the Arbital? What is that? I think you're talking about the. Are you talking about the Arbitel? The Arbitel. I think that's what you're referring to. You're talking about a book. It's a book of magic, and it's called like. what is it called? There's a name for it. It's a Latin. It's a book written in Latin from the 5th century is what you're talking about. But you not to be snarky, but you misspelled it. It's like Arbitel, like EL, not AL. I believe that's what you're referring to. It's that book basically deals with like angelic hierarchies, and it's pretty cool, like in the fact that it deals with like, it's a grimoire though. It is a book you got to be careful with these books, folks. I'm telling you. It's called like Magic Veterum or something like that. Veterum. It's like Magia Veterum. It's like some sort of Latin language. And yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's like from the 5th century. And what you're looking at is like somebody's writings on like the heavenly realms and stuff. And it talks about divine spirit beings. And it's kind of like, it's got like some sort of Greek overtones to it or whatever. That's the book you're talking about. I think that's what you're talking about. Raven Poe. Pretty cool name, Raven Poe. Yes, I agree with this. It says green is a very calming and health invoking color. Sitting in the garden is healing, but yeah, anything stinky on a cartoon is green mist. Think the Grinch. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Green was the color of the hue of light from an unknown source, which my brother saw in the aforementioned reptilian cavern tunnel. Yeah. Yep. The people that was sent to the asylum, do you believe they actually saw something that was paranormal? They couldn't find the word for it, and they just thought they were crazy. Yes, actually, astronaut Violet, I do believe that. A lot of times people who are crazy, I witnessed it myself. I've talked about it on the show multiple times. I heard a guy named Oscar who was supposedly schizophrenic, but I heard voices behind. I heard it, and other people heard it too. And I was like, dude, that's, I talked to these people and I was like, this is, something's going on here. And then they asked me to be quiet and not talk about it. And they were like, you're getting paid to guard this place, and the patients, or not patients, the residents, not diagnose them. And I'm like, okay, I'm just saying. And so one of the psychologists there she did not like me because of what I said. She told the people in charge of, he's cuckoo, and had me removed. I didn't say anything else about it, but that just stands to reason. I just felt bad for the guy. I thought he needed help. There's help that they couldn't give him. Maybe when Jesus returns. It's probably the only time. Ugh. I don't like clowns. Big time. They freak me out. Yeah, me too, Patsy. I don't like them. I'm just, yeah, there you go. John Wayne Gacy. Yeah. Trevor Law says, I have a crazy story of seeing smiling gesture clown projecting on my wall from the moon. This was around the same time I was around this evil girl. Get away from her. In Pennsylvania, have I heard of any dogman aliens? Of course, Pennsylvania is a very active state. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Joe, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that those clowns are the same classification. I think those are something different. I think those people walking around with masks doing what they were doing. This is something here. What does this say? Josh, have you heard of black cubes and other shapes and different dimensions? My son used to have dreams of them. They were beings and were dark. I think he would astral project unwillingly. Yeah, well, most people do. Says Josh, have you heard of black cubes? Okay, well, the black cube is used as a symbol in Judaism. A lot of them use it. They'll even wear it on their head during certain ceremonies. But it's also the prison of Saturn. And on Jupiter and Saturn, there's supposedly these uh, black cubes, and in particular on Jupiter, like it's pronounced, but at certain times you can see the one on Saturn. I've heard all these different stories. Never seen a picture of that one, but I've seen the one in Jupiter. I believe it's Jupiter, um, and it's a prison. There's a square right there. Like, I mean, what is that? So supposedly this the seven towers of Satan. Some people confuse it, called the seven towers of hell. That's not really accurate, but those are the seven towers of the Shaitan, and those are of the seven Shaitan kings that were imprisoned in different places. Supposedly, they were actually the rebellious angels that hit the earth. Boom, boom, boom. And those were some of the lieutenants of Lucifer. Some people confuse it and they say, well, those are where certain powerful demons, those aren't demons. These are archons. Big time difference. When you're looking at those beings being imprisoned in those places, those cube towered looking things, which is what they were. The base was just like a cube. Those are a prison for these, and some of the Jinn kings actually supposedly helped build those to imprison those archons. So that tells you something. How evil were they that they had to be imprisoned by other beings that didn't want them around? And so they were supposedly the rebellious archons, not necessarily the fallen. Some people confuse it and say that's the fallen, but the fallen had a very different fate, I believe, imprisoned underground. Rebecca, what do you got to say here? My tribe here in northern New Mexico revere clowns. In fact, we're having a feast day coming up honoring them. I never go to these things because I hate clowns. Scary. I always felt uneasy at this event. You know, there are a lot of tribes that do that, Rebecca. If you look at the Shoshone and the Arapaho, they actually have stories of these white-faced paint, whatever, because they actually painted their faces and they looked kind of clownish, you know, not mocking them or their beliefs, whatever. But my cousin Trey actually came on the show and he talks about this clown that haunted one of the reservations of the Shoshone. So that's an interesting thing. I believe Stephen King's books hold a lot of factual information. There's a show, there's a movie I watched called Doctor Sleep, and it's like this traveling nomadic group of basically vampires. And what they do is they kill people and they suck their essence out, like this mist or fog, whatever it is. They called it some kind of name. That's not unlike what they actually do, but they actually drink the blood and exsanguinate it, and then they take the essence of the dying. The same way, it's very brutal, very horrible. If people really knew what these vampires were up to, they wouldn't be so like all cool and trying to be one and think that it's hip and cool. They really do not know. Rebecca says you're still going to do your fragrance. Yeah, if I can get to where I can walk again, there's a lot of things I want to do, but I need to get moved. As soon as I get healed completely, I need to get out of this place and finish my move. I believe that. I believe there's certain dogmen masquerade as humans. Yes, they're called werewolves, Barry. Information given to him. I don't know. I think he just got it, and it's like this soft disclosure. They use him. Yes, Rebecca. What tribe? Is it Navajo? See, that's the kind of stuff right there. Goldie says, I've heard werewolves have yellow eyes and dogmen have red eyes. Nope. There's no way to know. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Pueblo. Yeah. Question says, "Oh, did Eve talk about what to watch out for these cults and their members and these vampire werewolves, how they act, where they like to be, and how they try to press gang people into their cult?" She did, but I mean, if I talk about that right now, it's gonna be a whole nother episode. So Jason Finch says, "Yes, Brother Wolf is the best." He's app. Thank you. Absolutely appreciate it. Also, thanks for what y'all do on the Paranormal Roundtable podcast. Well, I appreciate you guys showing up. And Gilberto says, "PRT is the best." Appreciate it. You remember that, Amy? Wolf dressed as a pimp on Halloween. Yeah. I think I started a couple. I had a luchador mask on one time, and I started one. I think I had like a wolf mask. So I've done some different things. Well, I appreciate that. Nina says, "Send prayers for your healing. Devils are working overtime." They are, sure. Joseph, you're having kidney stones? Oh my gosh, I don't envy you. This imagine kidney stones in your joints. That's what gout is basically. I don't know. People have asked me over and over again which one's worse. Neither. Kidney stone was the absolute worst pain I ever felt. Gout, absolute worst pain I've ever felt. I can't tell you which one's worse. I don't know. Yes, the Tesla spirit coils. Yeah, that's for sure. Someone said they heard sound clips from it, and it sounds like the auditory phenomena that surrounds paranormal phenomena. Yes. Jason Bissard says Josh left behind, most ridiculous crap I've ever heard. Those folks need to team up with the Bigfoot undiscovered ape crowd and have a CNN, MSNBC watch party. I'll keep moving forward, shaking my effing head. Yeah, that let them believe what they want. I don't care. So Murphy, I'm assuming you're responding to what I had said. Can't remember your last comment. What was it even? Trying to get caught up here. Let me see if I can get caught up. This chat's moving fast, man. I'm trying to. What do you think about the brain chip that Elon has put inside a handicapped individual to be able to? I think it's a very bad idea. That's what I think. I think it's terrible. Yeah, we got all those people in the chat and only 400 likes. Come on, guys. I can do better than that. Give me some likes. Wolf is speaking straight. There is always, Robert says, there is always a trade off or exchange with this occultic knowledge. It's your keeps. Don't be hasty in your thirst to know and learn. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Many schizophrenics have had the veil ripped away from their mind and are vulnerable and try to make internal sense of things as the best they can. Yes. Yeah. The address, I don't know if Anthony, if you're paying attention or listening, I don't know. I heard him on the phone a minute ago dealing with work, but if he's listening from wherever he's at right now, maybe you could post the address to the PO box. That's a hard one to answer, man. KD7. I'm not even going to read it, but I have my theories. And JG says, "Are there vampire hunters?" Yes, there are. And I had a guy that was going to get me a couple of them on, but then the hellbillies got a hold of them and they turned them against us. You know, but these people, they're self-destructing. I mean, they got this crazy lunatic that comes on and threatens to kill all of us on Abe's show, and then he's over there like bowing down to the cosplayer over there of the LBL, sucking up to him after he threatened to kill us and Abe and Jesse and Joe from Help and Holler and all the other things they've done, and they just act like it's normal. Like they're just not doing these things. Like, no, it's not normal behavior. Something very evil and demonic going on. Yeah, Joe says like the Soul Cube. What's up, Breezy? Soul Cube on the moon. A lot of questions here. I'm trying to get to them. Yeah, it's Breezy. Dr. Sleep is the continuation of The Shining. Uh, mm. BJ Lapierre says, I've had recurring dreams about dogmen outside my house. The dogman that spoke to me had blue eyes, not amber. Sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're yellow, sometimes they're black. Sometimes they're all black. Sometimes they're purple. Sometimes they're green. Sometimes they're red. It's hard to tell. I mean, it's just crapshoot. And I can't really see the pattern either. It's like, it's weird, man. Anyways, folks, we're about to call it a night. I appreciate everybody that tuned in. Thank you for donating. Thank you to everybody who showed up in the chat. I'm way behind on the chat here, so I'm trying to catch up a little bit here to get it normalized. Love Cat gave the address. There you go. It's right there. And I'm not real big on like horror movies. Like I've seen some. It's not my favorite genre of movies. But I do see it though sometimes. It's just like soft disclosure. It's literally what it is. They're just like basically telling you what they're doing. JD Smooth, elaborate on the question. He says, do you think what created the Fae and the vampires was Lucifer mating with Lilith, or was it Cain? I don't think it was either one or just one or the other. From what I believe, Lilith could have been with Samyaza, which is, and then they created Samael, which some people say is a male, some people say is a female, some people say is androgynous. I would say that a Samael, which means venom of God, would be an androgynous being and more like akin to like an angelic type of being, but like evil, because it was an angel and it fell. It was one of the fallen. Now, the 200 fallen are different than the rebellious angels. A lot of people don't know the difference. They don't understand it. They don't know what that, So it's hard to say, wish I could go back and read all of the comments where there's just so much. Yeah, Smurfy, Abe is fun to watch. I watch him at night, He's on late at night. So after this, when you're looking for something to do and you want to watch somebody's show, check out Jason Bland. He comes on after I do. I'm willing to promote him because his work is just really good. He's always got like top-notch guests. He's an awesome dude. He's got like really good, he's got a good presence, good voice. He's a great host. So go check out Paranormal Soup with Jason Bland. He comes on tonight. I think he comes on like 10 o'clock. So check him out, man, if you're looking for something to do. And then late night, after that, it comes Abe. It's a good question, Viking. Shade says, "What Wolf? I want to know what type of vibes, energy you feel when you're talking to these vampire cult folks. Like, does their voice sound strange, or you feel the bad vibe?" With Rude, I did. With Rude, the dickhead. Okay. Yeah, I said it. What are you gonna do? Over here talking all this crap, dude. I'm not afraid of you. Okay, I don't care. I've seen you. You're whatever. Okay, so I know that this guy has the ability to astral project. So I know that much, but I don't really care. There's a lot of people that have a lot of issues coming after me doing stuff. They are doing witchcraft, and they're messing with us. They're attacking us and causing bad things to happen. But you just got to really pray and stay strong. But Rude, I guess I got a lot of bad feelings from him. His story was very interesting, and so I retold it. And it was an interesting story, but as far as I know, that's all it is. I don't know. But most of them I didn't really get a bad vibe from, because I believe that the ones I was talking to really were devout Christian, born again. And I didn't feel really much bad, from them at all. But I have interviewed people before where I thought, this person's got some kind of, one person in particular. It's funny because we were talking about the moon and the phases of it, and she just like let the mask slip off and started talking about moon worship. And she was like, "Do you know the song that from the Roman times? It's a Latin." And I said, "Oh yeah, I know. Mother Luna, brave and strong, help my teeth and hair grow long, or teeth and nails grow long." Yeah, it's a part of it. It's a rhyme, and it's an incantation. If you keep going, there's more to it. And I was like, "Why would you want to know?" I've studied that. Yeah. And she's like, "Wouldn't you want to be one?" And I'm like, "No, I wouldn't." And it turns out that she was in some kind of moon coven thing and was done with that. Didn't care what she had to say after that, because she kind of let it come out, And Evan says, "Josh, have you heard that part of the U.S. war with Iraq was to take over the dig site of the Tomb of Gilgamesh?" They found the Tomb of Gilgamesh, right? They found it. Yeah, I've heard that part of it. It was multiple reasons. These people that do these bad things, remember this, folks, they don't just throw one stone and hit one target. They make it count. They'll throw one stone and hit 8, 9 targets, 10 targets. They don't care. You know, it was a multifaceted purpose. They wanted to, grab these artifacts. They wanted to take over a Stargate, which they did, I believe. And I believe that they were also looking for not just the Tomb of Gilgamesh, but other beings as well. They want to control that region. What about oil? Everybody's like, it's about oil. If they tell you that on the news, don't believe it. We got more oil than we know what to do with, dude. I hope I gave you some answers, folks, for those who wanted to learn. And hopefully you can understand and see through the lies and the bullcrap, the reason these people attack us. They got nothing better to do, dude. I mean, so JD Smooth says, do you think it was Lucifer meeting with Lilith that created the video? Oh, you already, or both. Okay. And I answered that. I thought that was, I guess you said it twice. You know, BJ, she says here, horror is my favorite genre of movies. I grew up watching horror movies, and that is probably why that is my favorite genre to write my novels in. Laugh out loud. Nothing wrong with writing your novels and to write them about these things. The thing is, though, the truth is so much stranger and better than fiction because there is so much weirdness out there that's like real. And so I just don't have time for fiction. That's my thing. But with all the different stories that people have brought to the forefront and introduced us to, you could definitely make some fiction out of it if you wanted to. Take it and go off in another direction or whatever. Just make sure that the true part is intact. The integrity is there, so you don't have somebody bastardizing it. I agree with that. Horror is all right, but too much of it isn't good for the soul. Mm-mm. And BJ says, Josh, all these comments and questions just show how much we all miss you. Oh, thank you. And the rest of the PRT team. Well, I've been told this, and this isn't some sort of like clapping on the back again, but people have mentioned to me that there's not a lot of channels where they can just do a Q&A and ask any question about just a variety of subjects, and I'll give you an answer one way or the other. There's Jason Bland, a link to his show. If you haven't, I would consider it a personal favor to me because I like Jason and his family. They're good people. But if you haven't already, go subscribe, give him some love, and show him some views. And he does a great job. He really does. I'm a fan of his show. I watch his show. I'll be there tonight because on Sunday night I'm not doing anything else, especially laid up. I can't do the patrol. I can't do anything. So I have to eat dinner. I'm behind. My wife's probably going to kick my butt. But here's the thing. If you go and subscribe to his channel, it's not going to cost you anything, and it helps him out. And I've been friends with him for years, and he's a good guy. And please go and like and subscribe to Abe too. Yeah, PRT News says Abe is not live now. He will be live later tonight. So show him some love later after Jason. Like and subscribe. Oh, see, now you want to get out, don't you? Mm-hmm. Come here. Come on. Come on. Martis. Come on. Come here, Martis. Martis wants to get out. Let me look this up. Oh, I was wrong. It says here the Arbitel de Magia Veteran. I knew it was something like that. Was published in 1575 in Switzerland. I thought it was older. I thought it was like the 5th century. So I was wrong. Sorry about that. Considered an occult grimoire with a positive message. Whatever. When putting a spell on someone, don't be a dick about it. Martis wants to get out and then keep making noise. Martis, I know you're just shaking around so people can hear your bell. Yeah, I got to take these lozenges because it, man. Wow. Another one from BJ. She says, I get all my horror ideas from my dreams. I hear that. A lot of people do that. Thank you for that compliment, Barnes. I appreciate that. Hey, Wolf, I'm glad I caught you live. Thank you for all you do, David Lloyd Barnes. Thank you, Head Trip. Peace, love, protection, healing to the Turner family, please. Thank you. And Plymouth says Jason's channel is awesome. It is, man. And Tennessee Ridge Runner, you're an admin or whatever for Abe. He's good. Yep. Thank you, Smurfy, for giving that endorsement to Abe. He is good, man. He's a good dude. He prays. He's a good guy. And then there's Monica's channel right there. I don't know, Breezy, if you're still in here, you want to throw your link up too. Joe Breezy, Speakeasy, and then Monica's Our Paranormal World. They do a good job. They're fun to watch. BMR is good. I like Blondes and Booze. Like Texas Front Porch. All good channels. All good people. Expanded Perspectives. Those guys are good. That's a good question, Raven Poe. I don't have a lot of time left, but it says, are the 4 popes related to the 4 horsemen? And if so, is what they say in the book of Revelation something we can expect from them in today's age? How they are related to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, I don't really think so, because you have the pale horse, which would be the white pope, which is death. And of course you would have the red, and you have the pestilence, and I don't think that's the same thing. Barry says, how many werewolf cults are there? There's no telling. Yeah, Shelly, his last guest was interesting, and I am going to get her on. I just got to be able to get into the studio. And it's sad because my brother is up there, staying there now, because we're leaving here. And so he didn't want to have to move, so Mushu helped him get up there. Now he can't get out of there, and I can't get out of here. So it is odd timing, Everybody keeps saying that. It's just really weird, man. Somebody says, what about Matt Emsh? I like Matt Emsh. Do I like D.A. Roberts' channel? No. Not even going to get into it. I'm not a fan. But yeah, we have all kinds of things going on, coming up, soon. Once I'm able to get up and move around and do what I got to do. But thank you, folks, for tuning in. Thank you for your donations. Let's read the donations off here. Solovino, Jordan Cogburn, Mayanna, my glasses on so I can read this correctly. Rhinosaurus, this is where free will becomes a problem. And it's like the public. Yeah, we read that one earlier. Tane for that gifted membership. Rhinosaurus, brought to you by Pfizer. Much love and respect. Love Cat. And then Joe Elward, gifted membership. Chris, just sending love. I'll listen to the rest later. Rebecca, thank you for that sticker. And Overbuilt Automotive. Alan Howell. Tennessee Ridge Runner, 5 gifted memberships. And Miguel Guerra, and with the funny comment he made. Sailor Nemesis, Slim Jimmy, it says the Hydra was being soft disclosed in the Avengers movies. Surfing Spirit Bear, thanks for all the information. Awesome shows, dude. Your show helps me stay awake and alert during my 12-hour shifts. I'll be praying for you and your family, especially for your gout. And then Under Fire says, keep up the good work, Josh. You're making a difference for many. I hope so. And then Evan, and then T. Tony. Thank you for those donations. Thank you for everybody that donated. No gift is too small or too big. We appreciate all of it. We appreciate everybody's help. We appreciate everybody who's been here and stuck with us during our departure and our re-arrival. Hopefully we don't have to go away again. All right. Thank you. And I'll see you guys sometime next week. Trevor Law says, have you heard that verse in Revelation to talk about the Antichrist residing in the place where Antipas was sacrificed, which is in Apollo Temple in Geneva, Switzerland? Crazy that where CERN is, yes, and we have talked about that on the show. Because it says, Jesus says, I know where the seed of Satan does abide, where they murdered my servant Antipas, where he was killed. So, yes. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who donated. Appreciate it, and I'll see you guys, and good night.